These are the perfect options to dethrone every current main roster champion in WWE. Last time I made a video like this, it was about the worst possible superstar to dethrone every current champion. But today we flipped the script to the best possible option so we could avoid some of those mistakes that they've made in the past. But since the recording of that last video, there's been 5 new champions crowned on the main roster, so fantasizing and predicting into the future about the best possible booking options here is going to be a little bit more difficult than it may have been a couple of weeks ago. And just a quick reminder before we get into it, this is not the most likely to dethrone each champion. This is, in my opinion, the best possible option to dethrone each champion. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the Raw brand here, and let's go from our World Tag Team Champions of Finn Balor and JD McDonough of the New Judgment Day. I guess that's what we're going to call it. And the best team, in my opinion, to beat them should be the team of Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. Now, there's a lot of question marks about whether or not Jey and maybe even Sami are going to end up on SmackDown, especially with Randy Orton showing up on Raw, showing that there can be cross-brand stuff, about whether or not they're going to show up on SmackDown to eventually help with the Bloodline Civil War stuff, and maybe eventually they will, but I see that as more towards War Games, and I'm thinking right now, what we heard Jey Uso say on Raw was that him and Sami have to deal with their Judgment Day problem. And as we all saw, even though Damian Priest can handle a lot of them on his own, and Rhea Ripley can as well, the numbers game is just obviously stacked against them. It's Carlito, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan, that's 5, versus Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. It's just not enough for Damian and Rhea. So I expect them, and especially with everything with Jey and Rhea Ripley being teased, I expect Damian to reach out to Jey Uso and along that way Sami Zayn, and maybe find a 5th member like Ilya Dragunov or something to partake in this. But overall, I expect Damian Priest to reach out to them to help them in this Judgment Day saga, which would then lean to Jey Uso and Sami Zayn potentially getting an opportunity at the World Tag Team titles, because Finn and Priest are going to be occupied with each other, Rhea and Liv are going to be occupied with each other, and Sami and Jey, I just really want them to win gold together. You know, we got to see it with Jey and Cody, and you know, that was such an impromptu fun tag team, and it worked. And I know I've been preaching to everybody about wanting long, prosperous tag title reigns to bring back the prestige, but let's do this for fun and then eventually get to maybe like a Creed Brothers holding it for, 6-7 months. But I don't feel like WWE should rob us of the opportunity of Jey and Sami having maybe like a month-long tag title reign just for the fun of it. Alright, this should ruffle some feathers, because I believe the person who down the line should dethrone our brand new Intercontinental Champion Braun Breaker should be the one, the only John Cena. So let's start with the first and probably the most rational criticism here. How is John Cena going to go from losing to Austin Theory, losing to Solo Sikoa, to beating the next big thing in WWE, that is Braun Breaker? And the answer to that is, I have absolutely no idea how WWE can make it credible. But I will tell you one thing. John Cena needs the Intercontinental Championship just once to become a Grand Slam champion, and I refuse to believe that WWE will not have Cena, during his retirement year, win the Intercontinental Championship and use it similar to how he did with the US title to get a whole bunch of young, prosperous superstars that he could wrestle on his retirement tour. I refuse to believe that WWE isn't going to give Cena the IC title. The problem is previous bookings of Cena have put them in a bit of a hole with this, because even though John Cena went on NXT and did actually get the upper hand on Braun Breaker at one point, it still just doesn't feel as believable that a returning John Cena, who, is much up there in age, would beat this young and prosperous Braun Breaker. But then again, at the same time, there isn't a lot of rationality in Goldberg, who was in his 50s at the time, beating The Fiend, but, WWE found a way to make that happen. Off topic, my point is, John Cena somehow, someway needs to win the Intercontinental Championship. I feel like it could be one of those John Cena doesn't really need to be the most dominant in the match, but he can catch Braun Breaker off guard. He can win by surprise roll-up. He can win in some way that doesn't hurt the credibility of Braun Breaker. And realistically, even if Cena beats Braun Breaker, it's not going to hurt his credibility. The only thing that's really tough with this is Braun Breaker just won the Intercontinental Championship, so it's hard to even think of who could possibly dethrone him that maybe Cena could win that off of. So I can't even think of that. So the main point I'm going to make here, for the purpose of making this retirement tour special, John Cena needs to win the Intercontinental Championship, and right now, it's going to be off Braun Breaker. Moving on to the Raw Women's Champion of Liv Morgan, and who do I think that Liv Morgan is dropping that title to? I think it's the same person that we felt from the very beginning when she won it. Eventually, Liv Morgan is dropping this title to Rhea Ripley. Everything that we just saw at SummerSlam with Dominic Mysterio betraying Rhea Ripley and helping out Liv Morgan, in my opinion, was perfect, because you can't have the biggest heel in the company in Dominic Mysterio, hanging out with Rhea Ripley, who has become a babyface at this point, and Liv Morgan was slowly becoming the heel, but really hit new levels once she officially partnered with Dominic. So it does make sense that Rhea Ripley would eventually win her Women's World Championship back, and I don't think it's going to be too far down the line. I just think right now they're going to handle the Judgment Day versus the Judgment Day stuff before Rhea Ripley officially gets her one-on-one where she wins. But until then, until something else changes, it's pretty obvious that we're going this route, and Rhea Ripley should eventually dethrone Liv Morgan. I also think it would be perfect that if Rhea Ripley was like about to win and Dominic Mysterio tried to get involved, and then you have just Jey Uso run out. I would have said Buddy Murphy comes back from AEW to help out, but I think he just re-signed there, so that's not a possibility. So yeah, have Jey Uso come out and just beat up Dominic. Now moving on to the final title that is on Monday Night Raw, being Gunther, who is currently holding the World Heavyweight Championship. And who do I think should beat him for the title? I believe it should be CM Punk. Before you freak out, let me explain. I do not believe that CM Punk should win this title off of Gunther in a one-on-one match. I think somehow maybe an elimination chamber, or maybe in that main event of WrestleMania that CM Punk has wanted so bad, you find a way to have a multi-man match that includes a variety. Well, it needs to include Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, in my opinion. But then, like I said, if it is an elimination chamber, you could throw some big names like Damian Priest in there. You could even throw like a Finn Balor in there. I think there should be some multi-man match that CM Punk ends up winning the World Heavyweight Championship in. And frankly, the more I think about it, the more I do want this to happen prior to WrestleMania. So let's just say Elimination Chamber, for example, because I do want to eventually get to that CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 41 for the World Heavyweight Championship. I know you could also give Seth the title and have Punk fight for it, but I feel like that wouldn't give Seth enough credibility as a champion. So yeah, let's get to the CM Punk versus Seth Rollins main event of Night 1 conclusion. Let's do that by having CM Punk be the guy to dethrone Gunther. And like I said, he doesn't even have to pin Gunther himself. Do what they did to Cena that one time and just have like 4 different people hit 8 finishers on him. Before we get to SmackDown, we're going to talk about the cross-brand women's tag team titles. And I think the only team in my eyes right now that could end up beating the Unholy Union is the team of Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Since Sonya Deville started running this faction here and then also becoming their on the mic presence, which I think was crucial for them because Sonya is very good on the mic, it's been a lot more positive for Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. They're being taken a lot more seriously, in my opinion. And I know that they're currently dealing with Damage Control, but I don't feel like winning the tag team titles stops you from that. I think you could still do the Damage Control feud in there, and maybe you could have Damage Control beat the Unholy Union. But no, I think right now Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler are being taken a lot more seriously. Obviously, like I said, Sonya Deville really helped this, and I think, yeah, I would have them beat the Unholy Union and hopefully continue to bring more prestige to the women's tag titles, just like Jade and Bianca did, and now we take them a lot more seriously. Moving on to the SmackDown, Brandon, let's start with the WWE Tag Team titles currently held by the Bloodlines, specifically Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. And no, this isn't a mistake. I think DIY should be the ones to beat them. Once again, let me explain. Now, I don't love 50-50 booking. I don't love quick title reigns specifically for the tag titles, but I'm about to go against all of my beliefs for this because I believe DIY should end up beating the Bloodline for the tag titles because a returning Jimmy Uso alongside Roman Reigns ends up costing the Bloodline their tag titles. Now, the first point I'm going to make clear here is that Jacob Fatu will not be eating this pin. It will be Tama Tonga. I just feel like DIY were pretty much unjustly beaten in this situation to further the storyline, and I think if we're going to keep using tag titles for furthering storylines, then let's do it even more. Let's have Roman Reigns, who just cost Solo Sikoa the WWE Undisputed Championship. Now let's have Jimmy Uso come back and cost the Bloodline their tag titles after they basically almost cost him his career. So I think this one works in the situation here, and I really want DIY to have a long and prosperous tag title reign with the tag team titles when they get them back, because eventually they're going to break up and it's going to break my heart. But let's just do this. Let's get the tag team titles in the hands of DIY because they never should have lost them in the first place. Moving on to our brand new United States champion, which is the megastar LA Knight. Yeah. And who will he be dropping his title to eventually? My pick is Jacob Fatu. Now, it's very obvious that WWE thinks very highly of Jacob Fatu, and as they should, because the man has been a superstar ever since coming to the company. He has completely taken over the Bloodline faction as his own, even though he's not the leader as Solo Sikoa is. And I believe Jacob Fatu will be thrown right into the mid-card title race the second this Bloodline versus Bloodline feud is eventually over. The formula is pretty obvious for the big guys like Braun Breaker, Gunther, those guys who got the call-ups early on. They're going to be put into that mid-card title race, hold the titles for a while, and then get pushed to the main card. Now, Jacob Fatu did not start in NXT, but he's the same kind of acquisition for them where it was like he was working on his craft, honing it, then got his call up or signing to the WWE main roster. I believe he's going to become a mid-card champion and eventually get propelled into the world title race. Now, to make this clear, I don't think Jacob Fatu is going to win this title anytime relatively soon. I think it'll be like the middle of next year that it happens. This Bloodline versus Bloodline stuff I think is going to carry on into WrestleMania and potentially past it. And until then, I feel like Jacob Fatu will be kept out of any sort of singles feud, but eventually I do believe he will be the guy to dethrone LA Knight. Yeah, no. Second to last is Nia Jax, our current WWE Women's Champion, and who is she going to drop it to? This is the most obvious one in my opinion. She's going to drop it to Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton is your women's Money in the Bank holder. Nia Jax is your current women's title holder on that same brand. And they're best of friends. It just sets up for the obvious betrayal arc that I think Tiffany Stratton will do. I'm not sure of the time frame. I don't think Nia Jax needs a long title reign. I think a short and effective one could work for her. And I think just consistently teasing that cash in, maybe like as Nia's walking out of the ring, you see Tiffy like looking at the Money in the Bank and like thinking, should I do it? Should I do it? And then eventually just having one day her do it will be perfect in my opinion. Now, this one isn't just, in my opinion, the best option that I'm picking. I think this is the most obvious option that WWE is going to choose. This isn't me stretching in any way here. I think Tiffany Stratton's going to take the title off Nia Jax. I do think it's going to be before WrestleMania because I think they have certain plans with Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania and who her opponent will be. But as of right now, unless something crazy changes, I think Tiffany Stratton's beaten Nia Jax by a last-second betrayal Money in the Bank cash-in. If you're still here at this point, this is what you've been waiting for. Last but not least, the current undisputed WWE Champion Cody Rhodes, who I believe he's going to lose to, is his former mentor, Randy Orton. Now, very often in modern media, you'll have that storyline of the student has now become the master. In this situation, I guess theoretically, Cody has become the master because he's holding the world title and Randy is not. But I really feel like the heel turn we're going to inevitably get from Randy Orton is going to be the reason that Cody drops it here. Because the only one, in my opinion, who has this current credibility, besides like a Roman Reigns, but he's preoccupied, to beat Cody Rhodes and the story to beat Cody Rhodes is Randy Orton. I think you can kind of follow a similar formula to the one that you had when you had Drew McIntyre going up against Orton and Orton beat Drew but then eventually dropped it back to Drew. And I think that could work with this Cody situation where you have Cody lose to Randy, kind of send him through that rabbit hole of like, I can't believe I lost, and then eventually getting it back. And I think when he gets it back, you can actually slowly start incorporating more heel tactics into Cody. Now, this is an example of one that I don't think is the most likely option, but it's definitely my personal favorite option. I think the most likely option is that Dwayne is going to make his return. The Rock is going to return and beat Cody Rhodes, and then eventually he's going to feud with Roman Reigns with the title on the line. No matter how many times I say I don't want that to happen, this is beyond the point. The point is I think Randy Orton is the perfect guy to win the title off of Cody Rhodes, and then maybe if we're going through the world title route, you can still end up doing Randy Orton versus John Cena for one last time. So comment down below where you think I screwed up. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.